Oh, welcome to another Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. It's also a fantastic Friday. The Eagles are playing on a short week. We're going to get to see Eagles football on Saturday. Many of you may be gearing up for a Christmas party. Maybe you're gearing up for a Hanukkah party. Maybe you're gearing up for a winter solstice party. Perhaps you're gearing up for a Kwanzaa party. I don't know. You let me know. Let me know how things are going out in your world. I'll bring the comments up almost immediately to start the show. I have a feeling that today's show is going to be one that we're going to really, really enjoy doing around here. So get yourselves mentally, physically prepared for today's show. Kwanzaa's on the 26th. My bad. 26th through the new year. So not Kwanzaa parties yet. But if you are going to a Kwanzaa party early, you can let me know. But happy Hanukkah to all who celebrate. Happy Hanukkah for those of you who put the C in the front. Hopefully you weren't like me in third grade and you saw the name Hanukkah with a C in the beginning and you said Chanukah. I did that in third grade. I've had Jewish friends my whole life. I know that kind of sounds like when you say I can't be racist, I have a black friend or I have a friend of a minority group. But like when I say to you, I've had Jewish friends my whole life, I have. And in third grade, I was sitting, it was like a read out loud and it was Hanukkah with a C. And I said Chanukah. And my Jewish friend Charlie looked at me and said, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "It's Hanukkah." And I said, "But it has a C, C-H." And at that exact moment, we got the announcement through the ceiling, right? If you remember this in elementary school, as like the intercom system or whatever. And I got called to the principal's office. And I legitimately thought I got in trouble in third grade for saying Chanukah instead of Hanukkah. I know nobody asked for that story, but this is what happened. And it was because some dumb kid on a bus did something stupid on the bus. That was third grade. So don't call it Chanukah. Go out of your way this week and educate your children out there that it's Hanukkah and not Chanukah. Okay. Glad that we had that moment. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, Russ, you happen to have a partnership with the Philadelphia Flyers with Snow the goalie. Certainly, you would not think to have a conversation about the Steven Stamkos rumors. Oh, we will. You might be saying to yourself, Russ, Snow the goalie and the Flyers are partnered together. Certainly, you wouldn't talk about the hot mic incident from Thursday night. You would be terribly mistaken. We are going to have a conversation about it. And I see people are already in the comments thinking about it. So we're going to have that conversation. We also have to talk about a Phillies trade that happened today that I don't really know how to make heads or tails of. Matt Strahm is gone. We will talk about that on the show as well. The Pope met a Flyers fan, met Slovakian people who had a Flyers jersey for him. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. And of course, we also have to get to the fact that the Eagles are, of course, playing on Saturday. Their first of 2 games in 3 weeks against the Washington Commanders. Everything kind of seems to be setting up pretty well for the Eagles when it comes to not the number 1 seed, but like having a good last run here, a last final 3-week run going into the postseason. Obviously, you have a very contentious game against Buffalo, not this week, but next week. And it's sandwiched between 2 otherwise quasi-meaningless games against a depleted Commanders team that will not have Jaden Daniels under center. So a lot to get into today. But before we go there, I am going to throw it out to the comments. We'll do a real quick check-in and see how people are feeling out there. Because I think it's important on a Friday. Kind of do a little check, a little pulse check of the people out on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Andrew Fawcett's here, says, "Greetings." Hello, Andrew. Brian Knowlton says, "Well, today promises to be an exciting show." It does. Brian was also out on Wednesday at the Snow the Goalie radio at Drexel Hill. Apparently I need to start putting announcements out, farther ahead of time about what location we're going to be at. I think next week we're in Bordentown. I have no idea where Bordentown is. If you live in Bordentown, I'm not actually sure that you exist, but apparently Bordentown is a thing, and that's where we're going to be going 2 days before Christmas. Am I thrilled about that? No, I have no. That place is so far away. To me, it doesn't even feel like a real town. I'm convinced that New Jersey is just like a few places, right? New Jersey is like the Jersey Shore. I can acknowledge that Cape May exists very far in the south. I can acknowledge Atlantic City is a real place. I've been there. On the northern side of the state, I could definitely confirm that Secaucus and Jersey City are there. And otherwise, I don't think New Jersey's actually real. That whole central Jersey area, I'm pretty sure is just a big beach. I don't even know. I have no clue what Bordentown is. I guess I can acknowledge that Newark exists. I think I flew into Newark Airport once when I was like 10. So I guess I'll acknowledge that's also a place. I've heard of Trenton. I don't think I've ever been to Trenton, but I think I have to go there for Snow Goalie Radio this year. So I guess I'll acknowledge it. Glassboro. I did go to Glassboro. I'm just on the whole. And Voorhees is real. I can confirm that that's real. Otherwise, I'm not sure New Jersey's an actual state. I'm not sure that it's not just like a bunch of randomly scattered towns along the beach. I have no idea. Amadeo says, I pride myself as a man of faith, as there's a clapper by Trevor Zegras, and that'll be a goal, and it's 4-0 Flyers. I know where that's going. We'll get there in a little bit. We got a lot of Greg Bondarenko's here, says good afternoon, and also says look forward to being back in town for the holidays and hopefully meet the Snow the Goalie crew. Well, you're only going to have one chance. You'll have Snow the Goalie radio next week, and then I think it's on Monday, the Flyers are home against, it's not San Jose. Who are the Flyers playing on Monday? Should I know? I feel like I said to Ant, I thought it's the Canucks. They play the Canucks on Monday night, and then we have Snow the Goalie radio on Tuesday. So 2 opportunities potentially to meet the Snow the Goalie crew. Greg Bondarenko, be swell to meet you. We have B Condor maybe one says free Tim Saunders. We have somebody over on Twitter whose handle won't display, says in Saunders we trust, free my boy. We have free Tim Saunders by Gimzat12. So there you go. Brian Knowlton says no one asked Tim to be suspended either. Fawcett says Tim Saunders is a saint. All right, so we've got the people are hopping in here. We got some actual thoughts. AJ with a good point here on New Jersey. Camden Aquarium. We'll acknowledge that the Camden Aquarium does exist, and so does the Susquehanna Bank Center, TD Bank Center, whatever the hell it's called. I'll acknowledge that. I've been to a concert there. That's another place. We'll acknowledge that place is real. What is this? Amadeus says, I will ask again. I don't remember this ever being asked. Does the Snow the Goalie crew want homemade pizzelles for the last home game before Christmas? Yeah. I love pizzelles. Yeah. I don't know if the rest of the guys are going to agree, but this random Twitter account that I can't see the handle for says, get a Snow the Goalie at McGurk's and Royersford. I've been to McGurk's and Royersford. It's fantastic. Maybe we should do a Russ Joy show out there. It'd be swell. Just at the bar. Meet a bunch of people just hanging out at the bar, arguing about stuff. So it could be fun. All right. Where do we want to start today? Let's start with the biggest story of the day. And I'm going to throw this out to the people, and I want people to know that I don't mean any harm in the question that I ask. And I am simply asking the question because I don't know who was offended or upset what was caught on a hot mic last night. Okay. I'll play the audio here because I don't care. But I'm going to put this in a poll first. And I'm going to show you an interaction I had on Twitter, and I'll play the clip for you. My question is, should the Flyers have suspended Tim Saunders, their radio play-by-play guy? It's a very simple question. And you can elaborate in the comments, but I just put the poll up over on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel. Should the Flyers have suspended Tim Saunders? Now, if you haven't heard the clip yet, don't vote. But if you've heard the clip, feel free to vote and let me know in the comments what you thought. So here's the problem, okay? Ford is here. Hello, Ford. Also wants to go to McGurk's. That's great. Sounds good. Look at this. An antique pizzelle maker. I like pizzelles. Ford can also give me some pizzelles. That'd be fine. I'll just take all the pizzelles. All right. So let's talk about what happened on the radio. And I'm going to show you this interaction that I had with somebody who I can't interact with now, which is part of the larger problem. So the Flyers are playing last night, and we're not even going to dive into the game because that's not what people were talking about today. They were talking about this hot mic incident, and I saw it come across last night, and there was somebody who sent a message to one of the guys at Crossing Broad and was like, hey, do we run this story? Is this something that's really going to, catch people, interest people? And I'm of two minds here. But like I said, I'm going to be fair, okay? I'm going to try to be as fair as I possibly can. So Tim Saunders, play-by-play guy on the radio, does a really good job. And he's on the radio typically with Riley Cote, who I believe he was on with last night. And there's a moment where there's a hot mic. And we've heard hot mic things before. Remember, Tom Brenneman very infamously got caught saying a slur on an MLB telecast. I don't remember if it was for the Reds or if it was for a Fox National. But he said something about the fans in like Cincinnati, if I remember correctly, right? And then that was the whole genesis of the Castellanos thing where he says like, I'm a man of faith, and there's a drive to left field by Castellanos. I'm going to play this for you real quick, okay? This was the clip. This was the comment that was made on a hot mic, and we'll go over here because I saw. All right, so Crossing Broad had the actual audio clip itself. All right, this was last night. This was during the game, and this is what led to a Twitter meltdown, but not in the way that you're probably used to hearing Twitter meltdowns. Let me see. Can I do this where it's just the audio? Let me actually go back to this real quick because I don't like the one thing that's on there. Hold on. Let's see if I can find a different graphic. Here we go. We'll go with this one. No, that's too long. All right. We're just going to try to play the audio. We'll see if it works. Hopefully it will. If it doesn't, I don't know. All right, let's go to this. All right, this is. Here we go. All right, this should only play the audio. Let's hear.
Philadelphia, we said sometimes the Flyers get a sense of urgency when they're playing from behind. Now they're going to take the TV timeout. We'll take it as well. 7 gone in the third. It's 3-2 Buffalo on the Philadelphia Flyers Broadcast Network.
All right, so we're 15 seconds now. We're on second 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Up. While you're down there,
So we are 11 to 12 seconds after the send away on radio. About 11 seconds from the time Saunders signed off to go to the commercial break. 11 to 12 seconds. There's silence. There's even the kind of like sing-songy to himself. And then that led to the part that was the hot mic. Here we go.
You're down there. Would you mind blowing me?
I think we're still on the air, Tim.
Fridge. Sorry. Did I say Cote before? Because Cote was on Snow the Goalie with us. It's Fridge. It's Todd Fedoruk. Okay. So you hear him. There's like an awkward silence. And then Fedoruk says, I think we're still on the air, Tim. Then there's left because they don't think that, like, they're kind of wondering.
Still
like,
we're not, are we?
And there you heard it. No, we're not, are we? So somebody clearly was like, you guys are on the air. Now, we're going to play this one out, okay? Now you've heard the clip. Now you can vote. So Tim Saunders says a thing. Tim Saunders says something that you probably shouldn't say. Tim Saunders says a thing that clearly, if he knew the microphone was on and they hadn't gone to break, he wouldn't have said. Tim Saunders also said something that I think many of the male voters in this country, many of the male listeners and watchers, viewers of this show, and many other shows would probably say has been said around them in a jocular manner at some point in their respective lives. Okay. He didn't say, do this. He didn't say a slur of any kind. There was not a slur like Tom Brenneman had. It was an 11-second delay or 12-second gap between sending it to break and when the thing was said. I posited a question to Twitter earlier today, and I said, I'll actually show you the interaction because one of them, I think the interaction was absolutely absurd, right? The Flyers put out a statement. So let's actually kind of break it out like this. The Flyers put out a statement. I don't know why the Flyers felt the need to put out a statement, but they did. Okay, so we have the Tim Saunders line, which I would say, from my perspective, isn't like some horribly homophobic, offensive thing. Okay, the Flyers put this out this morning. Quote, we are aware of the inappropriate comment made during last night's radio broadcast and the TV timeout of the Flyers-Sabres game. These remarks do not reflect the standards of conduct or values we expect from anyone associated with our organization. Effective immediately, the Flyers, along with our radio partners 97.5 The Fanatic, have issued a 2-game suspension while we address this matter with all parties involved. We take this matter very seriously and sincerely apologize to our listeners, fans, and all those affected by these comments. What the fuck is that? What is that statement? What are we doing? So I asked the question. I posited the question earlier. Okay. I put the question on Twitter and I simply said the following. I said, honest question. Did anyone ask for this? Meaning the statement. Was there a massive outcry that I've missed since the hot mic last night? Because what I saw, and now get it, the algorithm pushes you things that you would expect to see, things that the algorithm thinks that you would be interested in seeing, right? So apparently in my algorithm on Twitter, and also this morning on Facebook, what I saw was a lot of people saying, okay, probably shouldn't have said it, but it was funny. Okay. Then some people going, I really hope this doesn't mean he's going to get in trouble. A talking to would be fine. I did not see some like unbelievable outcry of like, what a homophobic statement to make. It is the year 2025. How are we still? Okay. So at least in my algorithm, I didn't see it, but that's why I asked the question to Twitter, just saying, was there some kind of a massive outcry that I missed? Right. And I'm going to take you to like, this is the kind of weird behavior on Twitter that I don't get. And I understand that by me now classifying it as weird, there's a decent enough chance that somebody's going to clip this part of the show. They're going to put it out on Twitter. They're not going to tag me. They're just going to put this thing out. And then somebody else is going to like block it. And it's like all part of this like bullshit echo chamber. But like, I put that out. I mean, this is nice of a way possible. Like honest question. Did anyone ask for this? Was there a massive outcry that I've missed? So this person, I don't know this person, Ray Zilla, whatever. I don't know this person. I don't think I've ever interacted with this person on Twitter. I could be wrong. I don't remember ever interacting with this person. This person quote tweets, my tweet, men really do not want to change hockey culture. Just ask them. What the fuck does that mean? Follow-ups to their own tweet. This is not to say it wasn't hilarious. It was. But it's also based in homophobia and sexual aggression, which people claim to want out of the sport. I swear I live on a different planet. I think I do. I think at this point, I live on like an entirely different planet. Like there is part of me that just sits back and says, what are we doing here? How did we get to that? Men do not want to change hockey culture. Just ask them. What was offensive about asking if there was somebody offended and there was a massive outcry? Like, where is that inconsistent with things? What did I miss? And then this is not to say that it wasn't hilarious. It was, but it's also based. What? Huh? Am I crazy? Because like, to be clear, let me just read that one over for a sec. See, I live in this weird world where I am very much of the belief that like you have conversations. If you're upset with something, if you're offended by something, the way to have an actual meaningful dialogue is to engage in an actual meaningful dialogue. And I went to respond to this person, but as you can see, I can't comment. I can't retweet, quote tweet anything because this person blocked me. They found me, they quote tweeted me, and then they blocked me. What? How do you have a conversation? How do you have a respectful dialogue? This is just, I could get on a soapbox. I won't do it. This is how so many people in this country are just so screwed in the head. Okay. You can have your set of beliefs and you can believe them fervently. And you may have friends or family who don't agree with you. Guess what? That's okay. And there was a time where people would just kind of talk things out. You might not agree at the end, but you've at least heard each other out. There's now this weird echo chamber where people just go, they throw their stuff out. I mean, I'll at least give this person credit. They quote tweeted it. So I was able to see the interaction. Sometimes people just take screenshots and then they put that in their echo chamber and block. I just don't understand where we've gotten. I don't understand any of this now. I think at this point, I'm just so detached from whatever this version of Twitter is or whatever this version of humanity is. I don't get it. I must be nuts. Because I didn't hear Tim Saunders use a homophobic slur. I didn't hear Tim Saunders say anything that is egregiously offensive, but that is why I asked the very basic question, was there a massive outcry that I missed? What did I miss? And I have yet to see a significant portion of the fan base say, this is unacceptable, he needs to be suspended. In fact, the Flyers statement was filled with replies saying, who asked for a suspension? Why is he being suspended? What are we doing here? Like, maybe I'm just maybe I'm crazy. Can I also just throw one other thing out here? And I know that this, maybe this is going to also somehow get misconstrued. Can I just say really quickly, if he was saying that to Fedoruk, and I don't know if he was, so I will give it one caveat. If Tim Saunders said that to a woman on the staff, we have a problem. We actually do. At that point, I think we have a problem. If Tim Saunders was saying that to Todd Fedoruk, his partner on the call, with whom he travels, does all these games with, I would assume has a pretty good friendship with. Again, you can argue that it's not a great thing to say in general. You certainly wouldn't say it on air. That's one thing. Now, if there was a female worker, an intern, something, well then, yeah, 2-game suspension. I get it. I will side with people on that. But if he was saying that to Fedoruk as a joke, I don't understand I don't get it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Here's the problem I have, right? And again, you can then say, well, your problem isn't with the thing that was said. It was the cover up or lack thereof. There are things that are said around a telecast, presumably, now we've heard it. There are things that are said around a telecast that you would not say on air. There are things that you would say with your friends, perhaps with family, with other people that you would not say in front of your bosses. I don't know. It was 11 seconds or 12 seconds from signing off until this remark is made. And let us not forget that there was another 8 or 9 seconds in that clip where they're having the realization that they're still on air. So that means from the time Saunders went to sign off until where that clip at least ended, it was roughly 20 seconds. Who the fuck was producing the telecast? Who was producing the radio broadcast? How do you, did the person fall asleep? Was somebody drooling on the keyboard? What are we doing? Seriously, what are we doing? Let me ask you a question. If Tim Saunders had signed off and 11 or 12 seconds later, he said the Flyers played like shit that period. All right, FCC violation. Not a thing that you would say on air. Would he get suspended? No. He said something that was suggestive. I would not argue as homophobic, but maybe I'm wrong. Somebody can tell me I'm an idiot. Why is that a 2-game suspension? Why isn't that just, if he had to, an apology? Why is that not, we are aware of this thing, we've talked it over with the involved parties and discussed how this cannot happen again, blah, blah, blah. This to me is not, I don't know what we're doing. Now, again, I'm not sure. I was not in that booth, so I don't know who the person was that he directed that to. I tend to think that if it were a female employee, it would be longer than a 2-game suspension, and it might actually be a termination conversation. So I don't know. I'm like wading into waters. I'm not sure. My assumption here at first blush is that he was talking to Todd Fedoruk. But the producer should probably face a similar punishment because you have a job, you have a role, right? And it might not seem that important, but there are advertisers who expect to have their ads read. I don't know what we're doing. Unless there was a big tech snafu that somehow the person who was in charge of the radio broadcast was unable to. But at that point, don't you get in the ear? Because you would. Don't you get in the ear of the commentator and the color commentator and say, hey, we're having a tech issue. You guys are going to have to vamp through the break. That's what I would do. That's what I think you would do or should do. I'm going to go out to the comments. I just want to see where people are at. Because I see my mentions right now on Twitter are absolutely insane. Maybe I should just go through some of these. No, there's some pretty nasty language being used by a few people over on Twitter. One person said, I'm going to say it was an appropriate response by the Flyers. I don't care if it's a hot mic. Somebody said because children could have been listening, you can't get away with saying certain things. If it's a small child, does that small child know what that phrase means? If you have a 5-year-old in the car, does your 5-year-old know what Tim Saunders was saying? I would hope not at 5 years old. That would seem to be very troubling. Let's see. Over on Twitter, somebody else said, I feel like everyone knows it was a hot mic slip up. Most people found it funny. People can't expect the play-by-play guy to always be family friendly, especially when he thinks he's off the air. Not too sure why they felt the need to suspend the guy over it. This is, by the way, this is kind of gone I think, to a national level now. I don't think this is just limited to the Philly market. I think this is just going to be this is going to end up being a much wider story. I saw Tony Bruno responded to it, said, if you listen to the actual audio and the mic still being on well after they broke, it's a pathetic overreaction. Doesn't warrant any suspension, in my opinion. All right, I'm going to go out to the comments here, though, because I want to see where the intelligent people who tune into the Russ Joy Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday land. Right now, the poll is at 71%. It's going back and forth. 71% say no, he should not have been suspended. 29% say that he should have been. We'll let that go. We'll let it keep going. Some people join the show a little bit late. All right, let's see. I won't go to every comment here, but let's see. Ford says, no, he should not be suspended. Gimzak says they catch way worse set on ice sometimes. I would agree with that. Fawcett says they should suspend the producer. Sean C. over on YouTube says, all because the producer of the game was asleep at the wheel. I imagine they fall under the all parties involved wheel. So at least Saunders isn't the lone one out to dry. That's another question too, just based on that statement. Is the producer suspended? Is Fedoruk suspended? Who's suspended? That would make it sound like it's not just Tim Saunders. Can I also just make the human argument here? It's right before the holidays, it's right before Christmas. I don't know if this means suspended without pay, but I can't imagine that if you're working as a radio producer on the Flyers games, you're making a lot of money. I could be wrong. I don't think that person should be suspended without pay before the holidays. I think that's pretty awful. I'll just throw that out there. Let's see. Sean C says he threw it to the commercial and the guy back at the studio didn't do their job. Simple as. Amy says an apology would have been fine. Chris Freed asks, what happened to the press row show when the Flyers suspend you guys? I have no idea. I don't know. Go home. Don't drive an hour and a half each way to Flyers games and back. I don't know. Let's see. AJ says, here's the thing. Shouldn't have said it. Should have gotten fined and given an on-air apology. I would even argue that that's excessive, but yeah, fine. Okay. On-air apology. Sure. I could see that. For those of you who were listening to the last radio broadcast, you may have heard a moment that was captured on a microphone when we thought we were off air. Despite that, I know better. I will do better going forward, and that's it. I think that's fine. I think it's actually a good point. B. Condor says he shouldn't have even gotten a talking to. Gimzak says, what if Fridge said yes? Then where are we? I think we're having a very different conversation on today's show. Let's see. I don't know what this is in reference to, Nick Abe. You'll have to let me know what the Michkov development is. I don't know what that is. I haven't seen anything, so let me know. Unless you mean the quote from the PHLY story, which maybe we'll get to in a second. Tony Louis says, geez, that's nothing. I guess I need more context, but my Lord, me and the boys would be in jail for the ball busting we used to do with each other. Chris Freed calls it Karens with keyboard muscles. Greg Bondarenko asks, is there any punishment for the producer? Yeah, it's a fair question. Jay Grosso 77 asks, can we talk about how about Fridge knew the mics were hot and Tim didn't? I don't know. I wonder if it's, so here's my guess, and I could be wrong. I'm basing this off of doing radio previously, right? We do radio now, but we do it with no breaks over on Snow the Goalie. Back in the day when we were at 610 ESPN doing Snow the Goalie, you would hear advertisements. You would hear the station audio running, which is how you would know that's what's going out to the people. So assuming they're using the same sort of setup that we do even now, if we were throwing to a commercial break, we would have the station audio in our ears. We would hear the pre-recorded ads. We would hear anything else that's going on. My hunch there is that Fridge probably was like, there's nothing playing. That means we're probably still live, is my guess. Unless somehow the radio, that has to be, because the radio producer, if they didn't send it to break, the radio producer wouldn't have then gotten into Fridge's ear and said, hey, you guys are still alive. Somebody at the station wouldn't have been like, hey, you're still alive, unless they have an audio engineer on site, which is possible, and then another one back at the studio in Ballackinwood. I guess that's possible. Could the person on remote, at the arena, have gotten into Fridge's ear and said, I think you guys are still alive, and the person back at the station screwed up? I don't know. I really don't know. Let's see. Oh, I've gotten an endorsement for mayor. I appreciate that. I'm not running for mayor, but I appreciate it. Someday I'm going to run for state senator. I think I'm going to someday just for fun. I think it would just be really fun to run for political office. I think it would be really funny. I don't know if anybody would vote for me, but it would be fun, at least for a little bit. Let's see. Tony says, good thing Fridge was aware of the hot mic. He probably would have said something even funnier. Well, I mean, God knows what would have been said. Let's see. Bondarenko agrees. Producer really effed up. CMZ says you have to pander to the woke mob nowadays. See, I don't even know if it's like the woke mob. I just think it's like the people who like, how do I say this? There's a set of human beings who are on social media and are very vocal and do this stuff where like they quote tweet or they screenshot and then they block. Those people act holier than thou. Those people act like they have never in their life committed a mistake of any kind. Those people are ultimate hypocrites. Like those are the people, like this person who quote tweeted and blocked me, did not engage in a dialogue, just said something really ridiculous while quote tweeting my account, not allowing for or possible retort. Like those people to me, I just don't understand what their value add is to the social media platform. I don't totally understand how they ended up the way that they did, where they're not able to have a discussion of any kind. And they act as though they've never done anything wrong, which I find hysterical. They probably will get offline and do something really dumb and bad, or they probably already did this week, and like, good on them, I guess. All right, let's see. Gritty123 says, remember when JJ and Jonesy ripped the team on a hot mic? Dale Weiss. There have been other, Jonesy used to do hits with the WIP morning show. And I'm not saying it was while Jonesy was on air, but like sometimes the WIP morning show with Angelo Cataldi would make some comments that like it'd go, am I going to get in? You'd hear a few things, be like, oh, I don't know about that one. I don't know who ultimately made the decision. I'm not saying this was a Jonesy decision or a Danny Briere decision. It certainly wasn't a Tocchet decision. Was this a Hilferty? Was this Comcast corporate? Was this Spectacor? I don't know who made the decision. Was it 97.5? Like, did Beasley step in and say, were Beasley the ones who made the call that Saunders has to be suspended? I don't know. I just think it's a little bit crazy. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to get to. Brian Knowlton says, make your first run for the White House, go big or go home. It worked out for somebody else. I'm not doing that. This is actually a good here. We'll transfer out of this conversation. Oh, Hennessy says, does the Tristan Jarry injury genuinely put Kolosov or Erson into trade talks? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is, because I thought that trade all along was mid-goalie for mid-goalie, and I didn't think it was really going to help either team tremendously. I think that Stuart Skinner is the better of the goalies in that trade, and I think that Edmonton was desperate, and Edmonton is also really cap constrained, and so they had a limited set of options without having to like deal a player that they actually valued. I don't think it was anything more than a lateral move. And so like, I don't actually have an answer to that. Like if you're Edmonton, does that injury make you look at Alexei Kolosov? I don't think it does, because that would be at best a lateral move. It might actually be a step back. Jarry's been placed on injured reserve. I just saw it from an hour ago. Okay. So I don't think it's Kolosov. If I were the Flyers right now, that would be my call though, with Sam Erson. Like I would get on the phone with Edmonton and I'd have a conversation about Sam Erson. I don't know what that would look like. Sam Erson's not making a lot of money, which is maybe where it helps you. And Erson is also a restricted free agent. So if the Oilers ideally are looking for a guy that they can sign for a pretty cap manageable number and has been a starter before, I think that like Erson actually does make a little bit of sense. Now, do the Flyers want to trade their backup and run the risk of like Vladar coming back down to earth, and then you don't have anybody who can really step into that role, and it probably isn't going to be Kolosov. It won't be Bjarnason, and then you have to go look for another goalie. I think there are a lot of questions there. I think it's a very fair question. If it were me, I'd be on the phone with Edmonton. Figure out what exactly they value Ersson at. Can't be a first. If somehow you could get a first-round pick out of Edmonton, Edmonton doesn't own their picks, though, right? So that's off the table. I don't actually know what you could get back from Edmonton that would make you want to make a move. The only reason you would trade Sam Ersson at that point is because you know that you're not going to re-sign him in restricted free agency, and you'd rather get the asset now. I just don't see it. I really don't. Okay. That was a good question, though. Let's get to another thing that's been going on around the Flyers. And that is a rumor going around about Steven Stamkos. Now, I saw Hockey Insider, who I seem to remember like not being the worst like a long time ago. Like I seem to remember this being a guy like back in the days of like the Phillies message board on the Phillies website. I seem to remember Hockey Insider around then. So like 2008, 2009, getting some stuff right. But anyway, Hockey Insider put out that apparently there were conversations between the Flyers and Predators about Steven Stamkos going to Philadelphia. And like on the surface, you go, that's not the best move, right? Stamkos at $8 million a year or whatever isn't exactly a great contract. He's certainly not the Steven Stamkos of old. But there's like a weird part of me that looks at it and says, you know, from a goal scoring perspective and for a team that really does need significant help at center, it might not be the worst idea. Like there have been some bad ideas before. I'm not ready to say that this would be like a backbreakingly bad move, but as of right now, I have yet to see or hear anything that makes me think that there's even a shred of truth to the Stamkos rumors. Again, it doesn't mean that there isn't any truth there. I have not done any poking around. I did my poking around the Quinn Hughes thing. I reported on this show and on Snow the Goalie what I had heard the price was going to be for the Flyers if they really wanted to go after him. And I decided that's all I need to do for now. I have no interest in going out and trying to be like the big newsbreaker. I just don't care enough. Could I do it? Maybe. Do I want to? No, I don't. For a little bit of context here, Stamkos is getting paid $8 million this year, $8 million next year, and $8 million in 27-28. He is 35 years old right now. So that contract obviously is not going to age particularly well over time. However, if he can still be a guy who gets you near 30 goals playing center, it's not the worst thing in the world. But again, he's not Steven Stamkos at peak powers. So I'm not positive that that's the guy that you'd really want to go after. If you're the Flyers, I do think that they are going to consider trying to find some center depth. But I also don't think they're going to like go make that big balls move yet. You know, I keep having this thing where I say Briere's got to make a big balls move at some point. And I thought that the Nesbitt trade up to go get your guy to some extent was like a big balls move. I'm not convinced that that's going to bear tremendous fruit, but like at some point you have to have a conversation if you're the Flyers of like, do we try to push some of the chips in now to fill the Tyson Forster hole on the wing and get a guy that we would have otherwise gone after next offseason? Do you just pay a little bit more of a premium to fix that short-term issue and have a guy in place long-term? Maybe. I still just haven't gotten any indication yet that that's what the Flyers are actively looking to do. So, not great. Now, interesting question here from Nick Abe. Coots for Stamkos. Flip the contracts. No. Because here's the thing. The Stamkos contract is a bad contract for 3 seasons. The Couturier contract is actually in a lot of ways a worse contract because Couturier isn't just signed for this year and 2 more. Couturier signed through 28, 29. Does he go even further than that? I don't even remember. He's in a really long deal. Couturier is under contract at $7.75 million through the end of the 2029-2030 season. So Couturier isn't set to become a free agent until the summer of 2030. I see absolutely no way that you would get a team like Nashville to want to take on those additional years. So no, I don't think that's in the cards. Let's see. JMJR 13 says the Flyers should be in rebuild mode. Well, I got news for you. It doesn't look like much of a rebuild. They're actively trying to win every single game. I've compared this in some ways to, when Torts was here. Tocchet is getting a lot out of the team. Torts got a lot out of the team. Is there a lot of elite talent coming up through the farm system? Not exactly. I don't know. I'm starting to find myself very not apathetic to what's going on with the Flyers, but I very much am like in this weird quandary where like I could see one or two things still going wrong and the whole bottom falling out on the season. And I still want to stay positive because I want to finally cover a playoff team, like an actual playoff team, not a bubble, COVID bubble team. I want to cover like an actual playoff team. So there's part of me selfishly that just like wants to see them do well. AJ says, honestly, seems like the Flyers have a good culture going. If they're not in the playoffs this year, they'll definitely make it next year. Don't mess that up by bringing in an aging center. Yeah, we'll see. And Nick Abe is right. They were really hyping the offseason for free agency. They were saying 2026. A lot of money coming off the books. That blew up in their face. Like if they were really banking on free agency, which I think they were, it blew up. Now you got to get creative again. See, if you want to take the pessimistic view, and we're going to move off the Flyers, but if you want to take the pessimistic view on things, I could argue right now that Matvei Michkov coming over early was actually a net negative for the Flyers. I know it's going to sound crazy, but like I do mean this truly. I think that Michkov coming over early and them triggering the start of that ELC meant that the Flyers couldn't tear it down as far as they might have wanted to, or the Flyers couldn't go as far into the rebuild as they wanted to because they can't waste Michkov's years on this ELC. They didn't want to waste those years. This comes back to like the Gauthier thing. To the Flyers, if Michkov stays in Russia, does the calculus on having Gauthier start with the Flyers out of camp or getting that look at the end of the season, does that change the calculus for it? Is Gauthier still here if Michkov doesn't come over early? Do the Flyers make the same kind of fake playoff run that got them the Luchenko pick instead of one that was higher up in the draft that maybe could have gotten them like a Demidov? I don't know. They're in this like weird in between. And in a way, you can look at it and say, this is like very hockey purgatory-ish, which is a phrase that I coined and I'm not getting credit for. And it's very upsetting, but they're in this like kind of hockey purgatory thing. There's part of me that looked at the team as a whole and said, there are enough positive signals here and enough positive signs and enough players taking another step that I don't feel like it's purgatory. It feels like you're getting out of purgatory, right? Forster was playing at a near 40-goal pace. That's getting out of purgatory. Jamie Drysdale looks like a competent defenseman again. That's getting out of purgatory. Cam York has looked really good this season. Out of purgatory. Travis Sanheim solidified as a top pair defenseman. Out of purgatory. Emil Andre has looked really, really good. Potentially out of purgatory there, right? I'm not a believer in Tippett. I can't lie and say that's out of purgatory. Luchenko's Luchenko. I hope that he proves me wrong. Martone looks like a bona fide stud. Out of purgatory. Like, to me, there are enough signs. You even want to go with like that entire Forster and Cates and Brink line. If you wanted to, you could look at that and say, hey, there's like a legit third line, if nothing else, out of purgatory. Like, to me, there were enough younger guys that were taking that next step that I could say, yeah, this makes sense. And at the same time, I can look at it and say, you're a Dan Vladar injury or Dan Vladar returning to his typical form to this team being a below 500 squad and ending up in hockey purgatory outside of the playoffs and far enough outside of the draft lottery percentages where you could actually jump up and go get a stud impact player. So it's tricky. I don't know. I'm not losing faith in it, but it very much feels like they've had a couple of wrenches thrown into this entire plan, and it's not ideal. What's this? JMGR says, what's funny is I feel like people in the organization are questioning Michkov not being a star or a superstar or a number one type player. If that's the case, then you're banking on Martone being your true number one. That's failure. Well, they do seem to be very bullish on Martone, and it seems like teams across the league are very bullish on Martone, and that's probably why Vancouver wanted him as the centerpiece or a centerpiece of the deal if they were going to make a deal with the Flyers for Quinn Hughes. And I would expect that if you get another number one defenseman out there, Rasmus Dahlin, somebody else becomes available, Martone's going to be the ask. I would actually think the teams right now might be more apt to asking for Martone than Michkov, because Michkov appears to have had this regression depending on who you talk to. I think teams might actually be more interested in Porter Martone. Okay. That's the Flyers. I'm done with the Flyers for now. If that's okay with everybody, I hope it is. Let's get to a few other things. Now, there was a somewhat Flyers-related thing, kind of. There was a Slovakian delegation that went over to the Vatican and met Pope Leo. And now we've had Pope Leo featured on this show before. He has not been a guest on the Russ Joy Show, although as a good practicing Catholic, I think that he should strongly consider the open invitation to come on the show. But this Slovakian delegation, I don't know if it's like Slovakian Americans or what, but this Slovakian group of, I think, 200, 250 people, and I have Slovakian heritage, so, good on the Slovaks, took over a Flyers jersey that says Pope Leo. Now, it has number 14 on it, which makes sense because Pope Leo. But, some might be saying, wow, did they repurpose a Couturier jersey? Anyway, Pope Leo with the Flyers jersey, he doesn't look upset about it. He doesn't look pained, right? We know that he's a Bears fan. Is he a Blackhawks fan? Did the Pope cheer when Patrick Kane scored on Michael Leighton in 2010? We actually probably do need to do a little bit of investigative journalism and find out if that's the case. But anyway, the Pope got a Flyers jersey, so I hope he enjoys it. And maybe he could say a prayer or two that the Flyers eventually get some elite talent on this team and we can cheer for them again, okay? Okay. Now, Flyers done. Let's talk about some of the other teams in town. Most notably, there was a trade made today. I've been asking if Dave Dombrowski's awake or not. Is he awake? Is he asleep? Is he trying to do his job? Well, the Phillies made a trade. They sent Matt Strahm away. Now, I'm not a huge fan. I want to be very, very, very clear. I am not a huge fan of this move. I am not a huge fan of moving Strahm. I think Strahm was a good reliever for this team. I think that you've now created a hole. I know that some would argue that the Phillies had a little bit of extra depth from left-handed relievers. I don't necessarily love the trade, but Strahm was going to get paid $7.5 million. There's a thought that maybe they're trying to free up money to be able to make an offer to JT Realmuto. And I just want to say as clearly and definitively as I can that if the reason for trading one of your best relievers and arguably your best left-handed reliever or one of them, if your whole rationale is to clear money to go out and make a better offer to JT Realmuto, whose best days are behind him, then I definitively want to say the Phillies clearly aren't trying to get John Middleton his fucking trophy back. And if the Phillies are trying to clear $7.5 million to bring back JT Realmuto, I don't think John Middleton is as committed to winning and getting back his fucking trophy as he would otherwise make you think. Because that, to me, I don't understand what we're doing here. I don't get it. This feels like a 1-for-1 swap. You went lefty for righty. They picked up Jonathan Bolin, who had a 3.86 ERA this year, 46 strikeouts, a 1.22 whip. Does this move the needle for anybody? Anybody feeling like truly ready to knock down, run through a wall for Dave Dombrowski now? I'm not. Let's go context, I guess. So Bolin has only played Major League Baseball in a meaningful way one season. 34 games he appeared in this year, 3.86 ERA. I don't know. This just feels like nothing. Feels like nothing. I'm hoping that they make some other move. They have to. Because otherwise, I don't know what we're doing. If you're the Phillies, I just don't know. I don't love it. Greg Bondarenko asks, is this the beginning of the end for the Phillies? I don't know. Oh! Well, actually, I guess I missed this. They got Kyle Backus from the Diamondbacks, who's a lefty. Okay. All right, fine. I guess it's fine. I don't know. This guy's release looks weird. Is he like a sidewinder, this guy? Backus? He's a little bit of a sidewinder guy. All right. Interesting. So they traded a lefty away. They brought in a righty, and now they've gone out and acquired a lefty. So they've replaced a lefty, and they've picked up a righty. All right. You know what? I might take back a little bit of the negativity I had for Dave Dombrowski. I don't know if I'm ready to take it all back. All right. So they've turned one reliever into two. Nick Abe says if they sign that Japanese pitcher, they might trade Painter. That's actually a very interesting idea because I still don't know what they think they could get for Painter. If that could get you a legitimate stud third base prospect or a legitimate stud catcher, then okay. But to this point, it just feels like we're very much in run it back mode. Matt Strahm being gone and replaced by these two relievers and the guy they picked up yesterday or the day before, Keller, like, cool. Maybe the back end of the rotation is really solidified. That's cool. The rotation's really good. You're probably going to let Ranger Suarez walk, which sucks. If they go out and get Amai, then you're replacing Suarez with Amai. You hope that it works out. But this lineup is still the lineup. And I'm not going to be convinced that this team can do anything until they've actually improved the lineup in a meaningful way. And to this point, they have not. Okay. What was the last thing I wanted to get to? Oh, the Eagles. So the Eagles play the Commanders on Saturday. And I just have a thought that I want to throw out to the people. Okay. I am not right now in the mindset that every game from now through the end of the season is a must win. But the two games against the Commanders are. Like, see, I don't look at the way that things are kind of lining up for the Eagles. Like, I'm not playing the really ridiculous kind of, oh, well, the Eagles could theoretically get home field advantage if like 4 teams lose 2 games. It was something like if the Rams lose 2 games, if the 49ers lose 2 games, if the Seahawks lose 2 games, if the Bears lose 2 games, and the Packers lose at least one of their games, the Eagles would get the number 1 spot in the NFC playoffs. Like, I don't see that playing out. And even though I like to try to live in a positive mindset and try to look at, for an optimistic angle, I am not about to try to do the mental math on that. I am not about to try to like bend myself and contort into a human pretzel to try to make that make sense. What I think is more likely to happen is that the Eagles are going to hopefully get them in contention for like the number 2 seed in the conference, which would be fine. And then maybe you have to go through LA or whatever as the number 1 seed. And LA doesn't really have a fan base. So that'd probably feel like an Eagles home game in better conditions, right? No snow, no cold. You're just playing in a dome. And like maybe it ends up working out for the Eagles. Like maybe. I think as long as you end up with one of the top 2 seeds, you're in really good shape if you're an Eagles fan. I think it's pretty simple. Let's see. What was this? Ford says the Rams really blew it last night. So I usually watch every primetime game. I fell asleep last night. I woke up this morning to Twitter being on fire and like the 2-point conversion and everything. And I was like, what the hell happened? I saw it and I was like, ooh, okay. Very interesting. Nick asks, who do you think has the brightest future of all 4 Philly teams? Well, obviously the Union. Oh, you didn't expand it to 5. It's probably because Ernst Tanner suspended. I get it. Brightest future of the 4 Philly teams. What does future entail? Is future like from now until like 5 or 6 years from now? Because if it's that, I might say the Sixers because of Maxey, because I'm really bullish on Edgecombe. And I want to believe that McCain is going to be good. I think the Sixers have like a reason for optimism longer term, even though Embiid and Paul George are, tricky to kind of figure out. The Flyers need to make a move to get that 1C or that number 1 defenseman before I can feel like legitimately good about their long-term prospects. I think that there are really good players. I think Mishkov is a better player than he's looked this season. I think Martone is going to be a stud. I think their blue line is actually pretty solid even before Risto came back. I would actively try to trade Risto after like 10 or 15 games of playing good hockey. That's just me. And I want to believe that the situation in goal is going to be stable. I don't know if the Eagles have like 6 or 7 really good years left, right? Like, because we've even seen with the Chiefs, like even a dynasty or a team that's trying to be a dynasty, like you really don't have that wide of a window as you think. So I think it's hard to say like the Eagles have the brightest future. On the defensive side, a lot of young guys. That could be a stud defensive core for, better part of a decade. Phillies now. I don't think the Phillies have much of a bright future at all. We haven't seen like they haven't really developed anybody who's a bona fide stud for the most part. Sanchez to me is like the number 1 guy that they've found, scouted, whatever. So it's not the Phillies. It feels insane to say the Sixers, but I'm kind of having a hard time saying it's not the Sixers. I just don't know if the Eagles have enough of the young guys to like make that case. I saw a question over here, and I'll address this one real quick before we head out. So there's this thing going around about Cooper DeJean and Nikki Bella from the WWE, WWE Hall of Famer, Nikki Bella. And there's this idea out there that DeJean, who's 22, is dating Bella, who's real last name is Garcia, that she is 42, so she's 20 years his senior. There's this idea out there that I guess a few times over the last few months, they have been spotted together. Cooper DeJean has been at multiple WWE events. Nikki Bella was in town. She was at the Flyers game the same night as her ex-boyfriend John Cena's last match. She was at the Eagles game. There's a picture of her sitting at Cooper DeJean's locker room stall. And then there's a picture, like a clip of a video that she put up on Instagram of the two of them out at a club with a group of people. And there was somebody who commented, and I forget who it was, but there was somebody who I guess is part of that group or was with them. I was like, oh, that was some really crafty editing. So there seems to be this thought out there, like, is there smoke to the fire? I don't know. Can I just say this real quick? I get it that they're 20 years apart. I am not about to weigh in on whether or not I think it's good, ethical, whatever, to have a 20-year gap between two consenting adults. But what I will say is I just want everybody to be happy. Okay? So if Cooper and DeJean and Nikki Bella are together, I hope they're happy. If they're not together, I hope they're happy. What I don't want to see happen is I don't want this to turn into Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. This team has had enough drama. We don't need like the constant cutaways to the locker room or the club box or whatever. We don't need the after game locker room shots of like her kind of like standing by the stall every game. We don't need the cutaway to the press box or to the clubs or the suite level or whatever. But if they're together, I hope they're happy. If they're not together, I hope they're happy. See, it's really simple. Really, really simple. Somebody should ask Jalen Hurts after the game on Saturday if Cooper DeJean and Nikki Bella are dating. I feel like he would say, well, I'm not even going to try to do. I feel like Jalen Hurts would have like a good old fashioned fortune cookie response to it. And it would probably make us all smile. So anyway, that's it. All right. I think it's time to head out. A big thank you to everybody who tuned in live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. A big thank you to everybody who tunes in after the fact in the podcast feed. Don't forget, the show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. And I will give you one final tidbit to walk away with. I put this out on Twitter yesterday. I think, what was the account at yesterday? I think we're like 215 subscribers short of 2,000. Now, I don't expect to get to 2,000 by the end of the year. As of recording right now, there's 1,788 subscribers to the show. There is a much larger audience overall who checks out different bits of content, whether it's this live show and comments on it, those who check out the clips, the shorts, all that. I am not under any circumstances trying to apply pressure, but if you have been joining this show for a while or keeping up with this show for a good long while, do me a favor and hit subscribe. You don't have to turn on the notifications if you don't want to, but if you can hit the subscribe button, it would mean a lot. I'd like to get to 2,000. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Just a thought. All right. Big thank you to everybody who tuned in. I will talk to each and every one of you on Monday. Until then, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Have a fantastic Friday, a wonderful weekend. If you're having fun out there for Hanukkah, Christmas parties, whatever, please be safe. Don't drive drunk. Call a cab. Call an Uber. Get a designated driver. Have fun this weekend. Let's chat next week. We are unbelievably close to Christmas. Let's hope the Eagles get us a win. That'd be a nice present for under the tree. Talk to all of you Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.